Last week, ArenaNet announced a new expansion for Guild Wars 2, Secrets of the Obscure. And of course, they announced it exactly while I was on vacation in Norway without Wi-Fi. So I busted out my mobile 4G hotspot and did a 720p stream to talk about the news. It honestly worked out surprisingly well, except for some minor disruptions.
He's gonna do it.
I just came back from my vacation a couple of days ago, so now I can finally start making lots of videos about the expansion. And today, I want to start off by talking about the expansion's lore. The expansion's narrative honestly just looks really freaking cool, y'all. The Wizard's Tower, demons, alternate dimensions, Kanaxai. Alright, Kanaxai was actually last week's Fraxel, but oh my gosh, we need to talk about all of this. Before we go and hop into some wild speculation, let's briefly talk about everything ArenaNet has told us about the story. The basic premise of the expansion, if you will. With End of Dragons, the Elder Dragon story has come to a close. However, in Secrets of the Obscure, a new threat appears. A demonic race from the mists, known as the Cryptis, has set their sights on Tyria. The Cryptis are pouring into Tyria through portals or rifts, and it is up to us to fight them off and close these rifts. Fortunately, we are not alone in this battle. In the expansion, we will explore Amnitas. It will actually be the second map which we explore in the expansion. Amnitas is located high up in the sky, just below Tyria's atmosphere, and is the home to two mysterious factions, the Astral Ward and the Wizard's Court. We've never really met these factions before, but apparently they are ancient protectors of Tyria who have been living in seclusion high up in the sky. I gotta say though, if they truly care about protecting Tyria, why didn't they help us during the Elder Dragon story? I'm sure they were just busy. The Astral Ward and the Wizard's Court seem pretty closely related to one another. They've both been living up there in the sky for ages. The Astral Ward are treasure hunters and adventurers, and they will be helping us track down and close these Cryptis portals. And the Wizard's Court is a group of powerful wizards. Nobody expected the Wizard's Court to be powerful wizards. The Wizard's Court will be involved with the Wizard's Vault, a new reward system where you can earn riches that the wizards have been hoarding in their tower for over a millennium. Alright, and that is the basic premise of the expansion out of the way. Now it is time to start our absolutely bonkers speculation. There is a lot of stuff to talk about, but let's start off with one of the big ones. The Wizard's Tower. The Wizard's Tower is one of the oldest Guild Wars mysteries. In the first game, it was just kind of there, floating next to Keswick's Peak. We never got to go inside the tower, so players speculated for years about what was in there, and what the purpose of the tower even was. It sure seemed like the tower was important, because a ton of NPCs were trying to get inside. One very iconic quest in Guild Wars 1 was called the Villainy of Galroth, where a dude called Galroth was trying to get access to the secrets within the tower. We, the player characters, were sent out there to stop him. This quest was actually one of the first quests ever created in the Guild Wars franchise, and internally it is known as quest number 1. So yeah, the secret of what is inside the Wizard's Tower goes all the way back to the beginning of the franchise. Years later, there was actually another quest in the War of Kryda, where a White Mantle Justiciar was trying to gain access to the tower. There was also Verada and his skulls. Verada was one of the original Necromancer trainers in the original Guild Wars 1 tutorial. However, he was expelled from the order he was a part of because he used forbidden practices to satiate his hunger for knowledge. After the tutorial is over, you can find him as an aggressive NPC, together with a group of cultists next to the Wizard's Tower. It seems pretty likely that he and his cult were also trying to get inside. In Guild Wars 2, the Wizard's Tower has moves, and all the lore nerds, including me, were really excited to see it again. Unfortunately, we still didn't get to go inside. The Wizard's Tower was now located in the town of Garren, where it's become somewhat of a tourist attraction. Supposedly, a wizard called Isgarren lives inside the tower, but none of the villagers have ever really seen him. He sends these elementals to help the town though, and sometimes people are invited to come visit the tower. But then they are never seen or heard from again. Curious. And for years, that is where we were at with the Wizard's Tower, an intriguing Guild Wars mystery from the old days without a lot of actual answers. Until now, because Secrets of the Obscure seems to be focusing on the Wizard's Tower big time. The Wizard's Tower is even the logo of the expansion. If you do the final End of Dragon story instance in Zojja, and then go visit Garren in-game afterwards, the Wizard's Tower is actually just gone now. None of the townsfolk really understands what happened. Just one moment to the next, whoosh, it had vanished. The mayor of the town actually admits that he had never actually talked to his Garren, and that his previous claims of knowing the wizards were actually just lies. According to the expansion website, we will visit the Wizard's Tower outpost in the expansion. To me, that seems pretty clear. The Wizard's Tower has somehow teleported up into the sky next to the other sky maps, and it will be our hub for this expansion in the same way that Arborstone was our hub in End of Dragons. The description of the Wizard's Court also describes how the court was hoarding their riches in their tower for over a millennium, so it seems kinda safe to assume that that tower is our Wizard's Tower. I'm guessing that the Wizard's Tower has been controlled by the Wizard's Court since way before even Guild Wars 1. It seems safe to assume that Isgarren, the wizard, is probably a member of the Wizard's Court. If we take a look at the teaser trailer for the expansion, we actually get to see the Wizard's Tower vanish from Garren. The tower actually looks pretty different here. I think that ArenaNet probably just redesigned it a bit. Considering that the tower will be our player hub, it makes sense that they would want to update the design a little bit. But if we look at this next scene, there are actually some differences that are probably a little bit too large to ignore. Bam! The tower is gone and now Garrenhof is on fire. There are even some dead people. When I first saw this, I thought that it didn't really make sense. We can go to Garrenhof in-game right now and the tower has vanished, but the town is also fine? Why is Garrenhof in the Strait on fire? That didn't really happen in-game. Well, actually, there seems to be an explanation. This Garrenhof in the trailer is probably an alternate reality copy of Garrenhof in the sky. Alright, before you go to the comments to type a furious rant about how I'm wrong, let me explain. On the expansion website, there is a description for the first open world map, the Skywatch Archipelago, and it says the following. Discover a chain of islands high above Syria, where distorted alternate universe reflections of the worlds below have taken on lives of their own. Alternate universe reflections of the worlds below? Wow, that is certainly a pretty big thing to just hide somewhere on the expansion website. If we look at some of the expansion screenshots, you can actually see this pretty clearly. In this screenshot, we can see a crystal desert area with forged architecture, but we can also see architecture back here, which clearly looks like New Kaineng. Now, let's go back to the weird shot of Garrenhof in the trailer. If you look closely, things in this shot seem a little bit off. First of all, there is no sea? It is a bit hard to see, but it seems like where the water was might now just be sky? And also, if you look at the buildings, their architecture actually looks a lot different from the Garrenhof that we are used to. You see the difference? Again, the description of Skywatch Archipelago mentions distorted, alternate universe reflections of the worlds below. That is probably exactly what we are looking at. This is not our Garrenhof. This is a distorted, alternate universe reflection of Garrenhof up in the sky. See, it sounded pretty far-fetched, but it actually makes sense. There are actually some more screenshots that kind of support this theory. The massively OP article on Secrets of the Obscure has some more screenshots than the official website, and this screenshot here looks a suspicious amount like Garrenhof, but in the sky. Look, that tree is totally the tree from Garrenhof. This also explains some of the shots that we see in the rest of the trailer. We see these creepy rift-like thingies opening up in the desert, Ratasum, I think, and also in Kaineng. And the desert and Kaineng are exactly what we see reflections of in this screenshot. Let's go back to that shot of alternate Garren for a little bit. If you look closely at the background, you can also see this kind of creepy tower with two spires looming in the background. When I first saw this, I was immediately thinking of another ancient Guild Wars mystery, which is admittedly a lot more obscure, the second Wizard's Tower. In the tutorial area of Guild Wars 1, there was actually a really pretty area in Ascalon called a Wizard's Folly. It was like this little mountain, and on top of it was a Wizard's Tower. We never really got much info about this place, and we don't really know what happened to it after the searing. After the players entered the post-searing roles, the area where the tower was located was actually just inaccessible. And in Guild Wars 2, you couldn't go there either. So we never really knew what happened to this tower. Did it get destroyed in the searing? Did it survive? Was it even important at all? Now, with all of this new info about the Wizard's Court, it suddenly doesn't seem that much of a stretch to believe that they could have been the owners of that Wizard's Tower too. And wow, it certainly looks quite a lot like this tower that we are seeing in the background of the trailer. There is actually another screenshot in the Massively OP article, which looks a lot like it could be the tower we see in the background of the trailer. Admittedly, the design does look pretty different from our ancient Wizard's Folly tower. But I am not sure. Maybe the tower just got redesigned a bit from its 2005 model. I can still see it. Gosh, I just love speculating about stuff like this. The official expansion website and the Massively OP article are filled with lots of interesting screenshots like this, but there is also a really fascinating piece of art. This artwork is being used everywhere to promote this expansion, and guess what? It looks like Zojja is back. As I'm sure most of you know, Zojja was last seen in 2015's Heart of Thorns, and the community has been wildly theorizing about why she's been gone for years. Well, now it all makes total sense. She's been up there in the sky with the Astral Ward and the Wizard's Court doing all kinds of important stuff. But apparently she didn't really have time to say goodbye to us beforehand. Can I just quickly brag, by the way? I totally caught this one. I do think, y'all, I actually think Zojja might be coming back. I think Zojja will actually come back. You know what? I'm gonna make a prediction. Prediction, okay. Someone clip this. In the next 2 years, Zojja is gonna be back in the story. This is my prediction. I 100% believe that. I genuinely think Zojja is coming back. I think ArenaNet knows that if they bring Zojja back, there'll be just so much hype. And, you know, this is definitely gonna happen. Official prediction, 100%. Oh, look at this art! Oh, it's Zojja! Besides Zojja, there's actually another really interesting character visible in this art. If you look to the right here, there is a wizard-looking character casting a spell, but this character has 4 arms. The first thing most people will probably think here is that this is a Djinn. Djinn have 4 arms too, and they often do cool magic stuff. It could totally be a Djinn. However, another possibility is that this character might be a Seer. If you played Guild Wars 1 or watched my Introduction to Guild Wars 2 lore video, you might remember who these are. The Seers are an ancient race of magical spellcasters who at some point were at war with the Mersats. They were also the creators of the Bloodstones, and they have 4 arms. These Seers are honestly an enigma. We are counted one once in the original Guild Wars campaign, who helped us infuse our armor against the Mersat's magic, but that is pretty much it. We also saw a Seer corpse in an Asura lab once, but really, that is all we have seen of them. Wouldn't it be super cool to actually meet another Seer in the story after all these years? The armor design honestly reminds me more of Seers than of Djinn, but really, both races kind of fit the bill. There is also one more wild theory that has to do with the Wizard's Tower that I quickly want to talk about. You remember the garden in the upper city of Divinity's Reach? This garden has got stars, planets, a moon, all just floating around. It's honestly looks a lot like this other shot from the trailer, where we can also see some planets floating around. My guess is that this shot was taken inside of the Wizard's Tower, but I guess it could be somewhere else as well. Here is the wild theory. According to the Divinity Guides, the garden in Divinity's Reach was constructed over 60 years ago by the Grand Wizard Garren. Garren is... Garren? Is Garren maybe the same wizard as Isgarren? Maybe they are related? We don't really know, but I'm guessing that Garren was probably also a part of this wizard's court. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Garren is Garren. If Garren is Garren. It's complicated. This whole room is honestly pretty darn interesting too. The massively OP article reveals the names of the 2 strike missions in the expansion, and honestly, there doesn't seem to be that much to glean from those names. But the first strike mission is apparently called the Cosmic Observatory. I'm guessing it's pretty likely that that is exactly what we are looking at, and that strike mission will take place in this very room. What is actually happening in this scene though? The portal seems to be closing and rubble is falling from the ceiling. A little bit earlier, the text "The tower falters" was shown on the screen. Was the tower maybe protecting us from those demons and now it somehow failed? On the expansion website, on the Omnitas page, we can also read this. Here, the wizard's bastions are beginning to falter under the corrupting influence of the Cryptis, an otherworldly threat from the mists. So maybe that is what we're looking at in this scene? Maybe the portal didn't actually close. Maybe the Cryptis are using the portal against us and a demon is about to burst out of this portal. Maybe that is our first strike mission. Next, let's actually talk about those demons for a bit. The Cryptis. This otherworldly threat is honestly really interesting as well. When I first saw the Cryptis art, I actually didn't realize that we were looking at the Cryptis. I thought that these were flesh reavers. The flesh reavers are probably one of the most forgotten species on Zojja. We first saw them in Guild Wars 1's Eye of the North expansion. Apparently, they are born as barely more than a small skeleton, and then the flesh reaver's parents layer muscle, skin, and flesh over the newborn. Kinda gross. They appear in Guilds 2 as well, but they're not actually very common. I do wonder if the similarities between the Cryptis and the flesh reavers is just a coincidence, or if there's maybe some connection between them. There's not much that we know about the Cryptis just yet, but we have seen some other mysterious demons before. In the Bastion of the Penitent Raid, we fought Deimos. It was always a bit unclear whether Deimos was a manifestation of Sol D'Alessio's inner demons, or an actual demon who decided to torment Sol. With the Cryptis being a thing now, I am leaning towards the latter. I would honestly not be surprised if Deimos is referenced somewhere in the new expansion. In the latest End of Dragon story, we also got to fight a mysterious demon, the Ravenous Wanderer. And just last week, we got to fight Kanaxai in the new Fractal. Plenty of spooky demons, it seems. And it doesn't seem like a coincidence that right before this new expansion, the main story is about a demon, and the latest Fractal is also about a demon. I wonder if we might encounter any of these demons again, because well, all of them were technically defeated at one point or another in the franchise. But who knows, demons do seem like the type of creatures who could reasonably come back. In the Fractal, Kanaxai is actually talking about how he's not ready to return just yet, so it certainly suggests that demons returning is possible. At the end of the Fractal, he even says,
"I'll return for you."
Is he just saying this to sound like a badass? Or is Kanaxai kind of breaking the fourth wall of Fractals here? Is it possible that in Secrets of the Obscure, Kanaxai might actually be coming for us? There is actually some other interesting Kanaxai dialogue in this Fractal as well. Kanaxai introduces himself as Kanaxai, Scythe of House Arcus. There's also this axe you can buy after doing the challenge mode 25 times, and it has the following lore text. All of House Mosen wailed as Kanaxai cleaves their founder in twain. Interesting. It certainly seems as if these demons have got a bit of a power struggle going on. House Arcus, House Mosen? It's basically like Game of Thrones, but with demons. I am pretty much convinced that we will learn more about this demon society in the expansion. Finally, let's discuss this demonic figure that we see at the end of the trailer. This figure has perhaps caused the most speculation inside of the Guild Wars 2 community. Who is this, and are they important? If you listen carefully to the teaser audio, you can actually hear this evil laugh which we already heard in the teaser a couple months back. I don't know about you, but to me, that evil laugh screams, I am the main villain of this expansion. I think this might be the big baddie. So who could this big baddie possibly be? Could it be Deimos? Could it be Kanaxai? Those certainly didn't have those creepy, massive extra arms the last time we saw them. I think, however, that the most popular theory right now is that this could be Menzies. Menzies, Mingus. The pronunciation depends on who you ask. I'm gonna go with Menzies for now. Menzies the Mad, Lord of Destruction and half-brother of Balthazar. Menzies is a mysterious god who we have never really encountered before in the franchise. There's really only been hints to him. In the Fissure of Woe, which was like Balthazar's domain in the Mists, we thought of his Shadow Army. We even got to encounter his Shadow Army again in Dragonfall, where a piece of the Fissure of Woe had crash landed into the ocean. However, there is really not that much known about Menzies. We know that his Shadow Army has teamed up with the demon Malix before, but we've never encountered Menzies himself. There's actually a bit of a debate about how to pronounce his name, because apparently Menzies was the name of a Scottish clan, and the pronunciation of that clan was actually Mingus. However, we have never ever heard a character in Guild Wars mention Menzies or Mingus in voice acting, so we don't really know how ArenaNet intends for us to pronounce it. So why exactly do people think that this figure in the trailer could be Menzies? Mingus. Menzies. There's a couple of reasons. First of all, one of the blog posts about Sodo mentions entering mysteries from the original Guild Wars game, and it also mentions ancient rivalries. That certainly sounds like it could be Menzies. We also know that Menzies has teamed up with demons before. Maybe he himself could even be a demon. But there's also this wild theory about his head. So, there is this theory that Menzies might have been decapitated at some point. According to legend, when Balthazar first entered Tyria from the Mists, he was carrying the head of his father. So we kinda know that Balthazar enjoys cutting people's heads off. And then there is also this torch item in Guild Wars 2 called the Fate of Menzies. And what do you know? It certainly looks like a head on a pike. By the way, can I just point out that these horns are pretty similar to those demon horns we've seen, like for example on Kanaxai's head and Deimos' head. So anyway, there is this theory about Menzies having been decapitated by Balthazar, and there you would have it. At first glance, this demon in the trailer kinda seems like they might be missing a head as well. Could this demon possibly be Menzies? I think it probably is Menzies. Now, to be fair, if we look closely at the hands of this figure, it looks like they are facing towards the creepy eye thing. The missing head thing could just be perspective. Maybe this figure totally has a head, we just don't really see it from this angle. Maybe the head is just like down here, you know? Maybe there's no head missing, but we're just kinda looking at these horns. But honestly, I think the way that this was drawn, with a bit of a hole around the head area and a creepy eye sort of shining through, could totally suggest that this is a decapitated Menzies. I would say that this theory is pretty possible, but definitely not entirely waterproof. Well, there is actually another hint which suggests that Menzies might be involved, and that takes us back all the way to Giala Delve. You remember Menzies' Shadow Army? Take a look at this mob, the Champion Abyssal. There's an event to fight this Shadow Army mob in Dragonfall, which makes total sense. That area of Dragonfall is a part of the Fissure of Woe, which is where the Shadow Army is usually doing shadowy evil things. However, this mob also appears in an event in Giala Delve. You remember those bosses that you kill for loot after the first half of the meta events? Those are mobs from Menzies' Shadow Army. And remember, in Giala Delve, we fight a demon. That whole story kind of seemed to hint at where the story is going now, a storyline about demons. It's certainly suspicious that one of Menzies' minions would show up in this demon meta event. So yeah, I personally think that the main villain of Sodo is Menzies. I think we're looking at Menzies right now. But of course, that is just a theory. And there are a lot of other cool theories as well. I've seen people speculate that this might be Abaddon or a Titan. As for Abaddon, I don't think ArenaNet would go for that, because we already had a whole Guild Wars 1 campaign about Abaddon. I will admit that these weird arm things definitely have a Titan vibe, but I think this figure is a bit too humanoid to be a crab-like Titan. Maybe the Karka are back. And of course, this could also just be a brand new villain that we have never heard of before. Phew, okay, Sodo lore speculation video. I think that is everything I've got for now. Honestly, as we wait for the expansion, we'll probably come up with like another 30 theories. I love doing lore speculation on my stream, so a big shout out to everyone who's been joining those streams. It's always a blast to speculate about this sort of stuff together. You can find my Twitch stream over at twitch.tv/Neranity. By the way, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I have lots more videos for Sodo planned, so hopefully you'll be seeing those on the main channel pretty soon. I also now have a second channel where I post stream highlights, so if you enjoy listening to me ramble, definitely check out that channel as well. That's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.